have a pen and paper or thank you, Martins. I hope you have a pen and paper or at least your notepad is open because we're going to have a structure of a bit more of like a conversation and not necessarily a training per se, but we'd also love to hear where you're joining us from, the country. Okay, so of course, begin with your name. Who are you? Where you're joining us from, the country you're joining from, and what you're expecting from this conversation that we're going to be having today. So Martins and I are Chevening Scholars. He will do his introduction and tell you a lot more about himself. But I will just begin by telling you a little bit about who I am and why you should listen to what I have to say on this call today. And I will just do that by first sharing my screen so that we can go through some basic information about myself as well as the Chevening Scholarship and what you need to know as we are beginning. And we will also be checking the chat and seeing who is in the room and where they're joining us from and what your expectation is of today. And then at the end, we'll find out if we've been able to meet that expectation. So my name is Sarah Muindi. I am a current Chevening Scholar. I'm studying a master's in business psychology at Loughborough University. And we are having a beautiful conversation today thanks to Global Wins and particularly Youlead International, which is run by Martins, who will be telling you a little bit more about himself as we continue. So the conversation for today is maximizing your 1 year as a Chevening Scholar. And we're going to focus on 3 key things. The first is how do you balance your life and your academics? The second is knowledge gain. What information do you need to have or know? And then how do you combine that with career prospects? And then third is we'll share with you guys what we wish we had known before or during this process or even up to where we are right now. So you're free to tell us the questions you have in the chat and keep telling us where you're joining us from. So just in terms of some basics, when it comes to this particular Chevening application, of course, you have to apply because to be able to maximize a year as a Chevening Scholar, you do need to be one. But it doesn't mean that this is the only scholarship that you can apply for. You can be a scholar in, you can apply for other scholarships as well, particularly for a master's in the United Kingdom or even in other countries as well. But the reason you should listen to me, first of all, is 1, I'm a Chevening Scholar. 2, I am an alumni of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. 3, I am currently a founder of 3 businesses. 4, I have 2 jobs in the United Kingdom and also doing the masters as well. So in terms of looking at your academics and life in general, first of all, when it comes to your studies, that's the first thing you prioritize, especially if you have been selected for this master's scholarship, because it's the reason that you move to the UK, or it's the reason that you will move to the UK. So it means while other things are important or you have an interest in them, your academics come first. So it means your grades have to be on point. It means you have to excel and you have to know how to do that well. Now, to do that, particularly with excelling in your classes, what has worked for me is I first joined a study group. When we started classes, we just sat randomly in the lecture halls. Ours is a small class of about 20 students. So we sat randomly in the lecture halls, and one of the ladies that I sat next to, we got along well. I was like, hi, how are you? Which country are you from? So just basic questions. Which country are you from? And have you done an undergrad before? Have you worked before? And so that became the first person that I joined the study group with. And then the next class we had, we changed where we had been sitting on the table, sorry. And when we changed, I met a second lady. Her name is Remy. Remy is from China. Anjali is from India. So Remy and I, same questions. How are you? Which country are you from? Have you worked before? Have you studied before? How long has it taken since you were in class? And so those 2 people formed the study group that I joined. And we have They have held me down. We have held each other down. We have encouraged each other when we've had poor grades, or like when we were expecting a 70 and then you get like a 65 and you're thinking, oh my goodness, and the way I did not sleep working on this assignment. So join a study group as soon as you get into the uni. If you prefer to study by yourself, of course, figure out where the library is and what times the library opens. Sometimes some libraries usually open 24 hours, like during exam period. So if you're a lone reader, make sure you understand how you read and study well. For me personally, I prefer to do it with people. So I joined a study group. We formed a WhatsApp group. We've talked about all of our coursework, reminders of have you submitted your assignment and everything. Two, plan out your time to study. So personally, what I do is I have scheduled time on my calendar for all of my classes because I have so many other things as well that I do at the same time. So I have time for school modules, I have time for studies, I have time for coursework, and I have deadlines for when I need to submit my coursework. So that helps me a lot. Then three is talking to your lecturers and supervisors. So this is important for a very key reason, is that it's different from the African context. Because in African learning, the education system is lecturer focused. So it's the lecturer who will determine when you will get your course, your thesis, which topic you will do, if they will be available to review it, and all of that information. So here, the difference is that the learning is student focused. So it means it's you that as a student who drives the conversation of this is what I want to do for my master's thesis. You are the one who has to schedule meetings with your supervisor, but they are very supportive. The lecturers are very helpful and encouraging. So I think it helps to get out of your comfort zone and then learn the system of learning that you had when you were at home and then coming into the United Kingdom. Then when it comes to general life versus, so academics and then general life, one of the biggest things that suffers, especially for students when they move to the UK, is usually socially, because you have, depending on how intense your course is, you may not have any time to do anything else other than just studying. So to ensure that your social life is not suffering, what I personally do is I hang out with people intentionally. So at least once a month, I will call a friend and just find out, how are you doing? And I'll keep in touch with people from Kenya and also new friends, people from here, because it keeps me on toes and I know how I'm doing and also know how other people are doing. And then it also gives you social capital, which is quite essential. Then travel. I think one of the biggest mistakes that previous Chevening scholars told me about was coming to the country and then just studying. And then at the end, when you're done with your coursework in like September is when you're thinking, I've never been anywhere. And so you have so much pressure to travel. So you travel in a very short span of time and you end up spending so much money that by the time you're going back home, you're broke because you didn't get to travel for the entire year and then you had to make up for it in a really short span of time. So travel while you're in the country and plan it out. During your entire year, plan out this month, I'm going to this city, I'll get a bus, it will probably be like £2 and I'll move from point A and at least see some closer places to where you live. Then take time to meet new people. If you like to club, if you like to enjoy music, if you like to dance, if you like to volunteer, if you come to the country with Kenyans, for example, don't spend all your time with Kenyans. Hang out with people who are not Kenyans. Hang out with Nigerians. I'm from Kenya, Martins is from Nigeria, and we've met. And so we've gotten to expand our circle. The way he works is very different from the way I work, but then now we learn how to like interact with each other better. Then have fun in a responsible way, because sometimes it can be risky for people who, for example, like enjoy drinking a lot. People have lost their sense of moral compass, their sense of identity, their sense of self, because the kind of freedom you have, and there's no one from your country calling you and saying, hey, okay, you better go back home right now. You can't be in the club at 3 a.m. No one is fussing about you. So the sense of freedom can be overwhelming. And so it's important to also have fun, but do it responsibly and in measure, with a lot of pace, so that it's not overdoing. Because if you overdo, the rest of your life suffers. And then lastly is remembering to rest. because of how hard you work, especially with a short master's, you can get very tired very, very, very fast. So I'd want to jump this and point to Martins and ask him, Martins, which countries have you traveled to since you came to the UK? I hope you've not gone anywhere. You better have gone somewhere.
Well, I think you're not going to put me under the spot. I'm not going to feel intimidated. Okay. I've been within the UK. I've not left the UK yet because you would know why soon when I start to speak. To the rest of you, I've just joined the call. So if you're just joining on the call, welcome everyone. And this session is not just for those people who are awaiting their interviews. This session is for us to share practical insights from our experiences so that you will see how you can make the most of your 1 year when you get the Chevening Award, right? That's what we tailor this section for. So please introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know where you're joining in from, and let us know if you applied, you are waiting interview feedback, and you are under some really, really strong pressure at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the session already started, and Sarah is already going through how you can walk through your academics and how you can walk through balancing that with your life, right? All right, Sarah, you can continue.
It's fine, Martins. You'll tell us where you've gone. You don't have to have left the country. So some of the places I have been to I've been back to my home country. I've been back to Kenya, definitely. I miss my home. And I've been to other cities as well. It doesn't need to be Scotland or Wales. It can be London, which I was actually there today. I've been to Nottingham. I've been to Leicester. It's closer to where I live. It's like 30 minutes from where I live. And I've been to this particular photo with the 3 girls. One of them is my flatmate, and this one is her friend. We went and we rode on an ice rink. I'm telling you guys, I almost broke that thing because I was about to fall down because I'd never been on an ice rink ever before in my entire life. And so it was an amazing, unique experience. I only did it once and I was like, thank you very much. I don't want to embarrass myself. I didn't fall the first time. I'm not going to get on the ice rink and then fall when I try to do it a second time. But it's new experiences that teach you different things about just getting out of your comfort zone and challenging yourself and also enjoying the time that you're here. Because you can get so caught up in working, so caught up in your studies that you forget to actually have fun. And that's also really important. Now, when we asked you guys a question about what you need to do in terms of what do you wish you would want to know to make the most of this year? So quite a couple of you mentioned that you wanted to find out about how you get employment in the United Kingdom and what you need to do. So in terms of the practical bits of it, you need to start your applications early. As soon as you get that email that says, congratulations, you've been selected, that is when you should start with your documentation. And it's not just documentation for your travel, but it's also documentation for your work, what you want to do in terms of work. So you give yourself a little bit of a grace period because it's June. We'll have June, July, August. By August, September, you should already be in the UK. So what I'd recommend is between end of June, mid-July to end of August, you should have started your job applications. So it means start to research the country, the town, the city where you're going, and the jobs that you're likely to apply for there. Where do you look for those jobs? We plugged quite a couple of places here. There's Indeed.com, there's Indeed Flex, there's your university's website, and there's Target Jobs. And those are just a few like basics where you can be able to start your applications from. And then you usually search for for jobs based on where you live and also like a couple of miles around where you live. So usually I would advise at most maybe 3 to 5 miles radius from where you live. So for example, I live in Loughborough. So when applying when I'm applying for jobs, I apply for jobs around a 5-mile radius because of transport cost. If you commute too far, then you're going to be too exhausted to handle other things. Or if you commute too far, you're going to spend more money. So the money you're making in your job, you're spending on the road. So it makes no sense. So begin your applications early. So you first apply for the jobs, but you also apply for right to work documents. So right to work documents, you get them from the British government's website, and you will apply for a national insurance number, and you'll also need to apply for a work share code. So those two, make sure you note them down somewhere. An I number and a work share code, because once you start applying for jobs and then you get shortlisted for interviews, usually you will need to provide this information, your NI number, because it's how they track how much money you're earning, so that they determine how much tax you will pay, if at all. And also your work share code number is part of the documents you need to provide to your employer, potential employer, to show that you have the right to work in the UK. So the process usually for interviews is, the process for the job application itself is, you first apply. So you'll search the way I've mentioned on this site. Then what I recommend is you have an Excel sheet. I have one. I applied to 17 jobs before I got my first two. So you apply, you put an Excel sheet that has the company, the vacancy itself, and your application. Because I remember seeing a meme on TikTok about someone who was dusting their coat because they are about to apply to be a judge. And they need to remember they are a master's student studying psychology. So you need to have track of which job did you apply to when, and what application information did you provide? What was your resume like? Which you also need to revise. And I think Martins will give a little bit of a snippet of how you should do that. So this is the documents that you will need. Then something that's crucial for you to know as soon as you start working is that you need to remain within your working hours. As a student, you can only work 20 hours per week, and during term time, and then during the break, summer break, December break, Easter break, you can work 40 hours. I usually manage my time by alternating. So I have one job that is 0 contract hours, which means that I don't have to do any work. It's 0 contract. And I have another job that is contracted with several hours. I have to work at least 6 hours a week. So what happens is I will alternate. So if in this week I do like 3 shifts in one company, in one job, next week I will only take jobs for the 0 contract hours for that week, so that I don't exceed my 20 hours each week. And that also is important, because if you exceed that time, then you're going against the conditions for your visa, and usually your visa can be revoked, and that means you get deported back home. So in terms of where you should begin, first is documentation. It means you need to review your CV for the UK, and Martins will touch on that. It also means you need to get your right to work documents, and you need to start applying for jobs. That is when it comes to the jobs itself. When it comes to the Chevening Scholarship, you also have documentation, and it's a lot. Just to psychologically prepare you, it's a lot of documentation. Immediately after you get your selection, the next thing you usually need to apply for is a CAS, confirmation of acceptance of studies, from your uni. So once you have gotten the email from your university, from Chevening, saying congratulations, you need to email that to your uni and immediately request them to send you a confirmation of acceptance of studies. That document is one of the documents you need to apply for your visa. So after you make your application for your visa, it's online. The visa interview is usually at TLS, depending on your country. For Kenya, the visa interviews were in Nairobi. So, and they're very straightforward, especially when you have been selected for Chevening. It's more like just a ticking on and a fast tracking for you. So once you finish the documentation for visa application, you also need to apply for a TB test. Before the visa is the TB test, and then the visa application, because you need the TB test to add to your visa application as you're submitting your documents. So that's just documentation for initial steps. Once you have confirmed that, then you put documentation together for your travel. So printing out your travel documents, having your yellow fever, your passport, all of that already needs to be in place. So you handle documentation, then you handle applications, particularly for jobs, and start early, as I've already mentioned. Then third is building your profile. So an example and a pro tip I'd give is, for me, because I'm currently in the UK, but I definitely intend to go back. If you're a Chevening Scholar, you will be going back to your home country. So it means I had to be very intentional about building my profile as a therapist and as a founder. So on my social media, I've had to like double up so much more content now than I used to put up before, because it helps to keep me as a professional at the top of mind for different opportunities that come up in the UK. And then the building of your profile, you do whether you get selected or you don't get selected for Chevening. So that even if you don't get selected for Chevening, the 1 year when you're still considering whether you will reapply, you are working, you are talking about the work that you're doing, and you are documenting that journey on social media and on your LinkedIn profile and on your CV and on your resume, so that by the time you're reapplying, someone can see this 1 year you've done so much. So a lot has changed about your professional profile that then enables you to have a better application if you choose to reapply. Then lastly is networking. And what has helped me specifically has been volunteering. So when I got here, the first thing I did after I had now started to understand, okay, this is where you get the bus, this is where you get the train, what are my classmates like, is I started to volunteer. And the first volunteering job I got was from one of my classmates who is in charge of postgraduate volunteers. So she asked in our class, hey guys, we have this volunteer thing coming up, who's interested? I said, I'm interested. Guys, let me tell you, I went for the volunteer job and it was farm work, okay? So they gave us shovels and then we had to like go and dig and pull out grass in this patch of land. And then in the afternoon, we went and saw some animals that are called alpacas. There's some weird animals, but it was interesting because it was my first volunteer experience. And then what did Sarah do? I added it to my CV. So that was my first opportunity for volunteering, and I got it through a network in my class. My second volunteering opportunity I got from church, because when I went to church, it was announced that there was an event coming up and it was a mental health event. So I just went and asked the people that made the announcement, do you guys need any help? I'm willing to just come and help to set up and whatever needs doing. And they said then that they needed someone to do photography. Miss Sarah, I had never handled a camera in my life before. But I said, don't worry. I will volunteer and I'll take the photos. So that is how I got my next networking opportunity. That volunteering role led to my first UK speaking engagement, and it also led to my first brand partnership deal. So you look at your network from just exactly what is low hanging, and then you work with that by just asking. For me particularly is, where do you need help? What help do you need? And that has opened a lot more opportunities and doors beyond just the working or beyond the volunteering to things that now earn and generate me revenue and money. So those are my shared thoughts, and I'm going to be inviting Martins to begin by telling us where he's traveled to outside of where he lives, and also he will continue and tell us a little bit more around knowledge gains. But thank you very much. I'm now going to be reading through all of the messages that I'm seeing coming through. Martins, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was like 24 minutes of one year or 11 months or 9 months that you shared so fast. Everyone, please put our hands together for Sarah. Let's hands together for Sarah, everyone. Thank you. I need to see more clapping emojis. Apparently, we're not the only Chevening scholars on this call. There is also Ogenechove Kolosi. We call him OG. He's from Nigeria. Is also on this call. Ogenechove, welcome. As we speak, Ogenechove is in the library, so maybe if time affords him the opportunity, he could say hi, but it's definitely in the chat box answering whatever questions you have. We are seeing a lot of questions in the chat box. We are seeing people asking about work. We are seeing people asking if UCL opportunities are opening to Chevening scholars, right? Then I'm seeing people say, can we talk about accommodation and how that works for new students and all of that? So yes, it is this practicality that allowed us to put all of these sections together. So I'm going to put up a quick Mentimeter poll on the screen, right? And then if you're just joining in, this will be your best moment to dive in and not fall off. And then as we take the Mentimeter poll, we would start to engage. Sarah shared some amazing insights about networking and going straight for low-hanging fruit. So the first thing I want to emphasize this afternoon is please participate, ask questions. There is no stupid question, there is no ignorant question, there is no foolish question, there is no irrelevant question, right? Because that's what this session is for. All right, that's the first thing I want to say. So please let me know once you can see my screen. Just a moment. Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this is the first thing I want you to answer for me. I want you to tell me what you are looking forward to for your Chevening here. For those of you who are already in the interview stage, for those of you who are already awaiting. So if you got the email today that you've been selected, what would you be looking forward to for your Chevening here? If you want to participate in this, please pick up your phone, go to your Chrome browser, type www.menti.com and type in the code on the screen, 7178-7537. All right. That's all you need to do for you to be able to respond to this. So while I await all of those responses, I'm seeing a question. Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for putting the link in the chat box. I'm seeing a question on the session, right? Ola said, out of the context, I face challenges in meeting my conditional offer requirements. Will 2 weeks be enough to meet them? 2 weeks. So now I think first, the school is important. What school is it and what length of time would they give you? If they gave you 2 weeks, if, for example, those requirements are maybe writing your IELTS exam, IELTS exam, right? And maybe sending a transcript or a reference letter. I don't know what other requirements would be apart from those two, right? If those are your two key requirements, Ola, then you can write the IELTS within a week, right? You can prepare for IELTS exam within a week, right? If you do the hard drive and hard preparation dive, right? And then you can also get whatever documents you have been asked to provide, right? To come up as soon as possible, right? So Ola, please take note of that. So it depends on the documents you've been asked to submit, all right? Meanwhile, while we are going to have a section for the questions that we will be answering, like the ones I'm already seeing in terms of accommodation in the chat box, I think I'm tempted to read out some of the responses on the screen. Some people say what they are looking forward to in the 1 year is exploring the UK.
It's big people, oh.
Exploring the UK, right? And then someone said, okay, this thing is disappearing from my view. Okay, world class learning. I'm seeing world class learning. I'm seeing having sex with a foreigner, right? I'm seeing meeting new people. I'm seeing networking. I'm seeing travel, right? Now, these are things you are expecting to do within 1 year, right? You're expected to gain your master's in 1 year. You're expected to network in 1 year. You're expected to get internship and work opportunities in 1 year. You're expected to save money in 1 year, right? You're expected to do a lot of things. You're expected to build a career. All of these are a lot for 1 year, right? All of these things are a lot of things for 1 year. You're expected to travel across the UK, outside of the UK to Spain, Italy, and France, etc. Maybe to find love. You're expected to get married. If you have not gotten married, you're expected to maybe marry after your master's, if that's what you're looking at doing, right? But let's please be sure that we are aware that you are first a student, right? You are first a student, and 1 year is usually not enough for most of the things you want to do, right? And so it is important that you are aware of how limited the time is, right? So thank you all so much for your response to this particular question, right? The next question I want to ask now is, what do you want from your MSc? Once you get your Chevening Award, that's the best time for you to think about, again, what do you want from your MSc, right? This is the best time to ask yourself, what exactly am I going to get from my master's degree? By the time I'm done with MSc Public Health for Development from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who would I be? What skills would I have? What competencies would I have developed, right? So please, I am putting this up here to trigger your thoughts and to bring into view the fact that this is the most important reason why you are in the UK, right? And this then varies for each person based on what your story has been before you came to the UK, what your story would be after you leave the UK or when you're done with the masters, what your story would eventually be. But it's almost always key that people always are looking for career opportunities. They are looking to be global. They are looking to be influential. They are looking to land a better paying job than what they previously had, right? Now, these are things they are looking forward to in terms of their experiences, but it pays to be very definitive, right? Organet Trevor is currently in the library, like I said to you. Every one of us at this moment are either working on our thesis, like Sarah and myself, or we're working on our research project, etc. Some of us are traveling to the field to collect data and then analyzing those data sets or whatever it might be. But see, you want to think thoroughly throughout what you want to gain from your masters. So my first response to this is you need to sit down, right? And immediately you get that email, take a few days to think through, right? The course you would eventually respond to Chevening and say, okay, this is my first choice, but I don't want that to be my first choice anymore. I want to now go to my second choice university, right? Or I want to now go to my third choice university. But please be decisive and be quickly decisive. Don't be indecisive, right? Now, there is reading. You're already good. You're already smart enough to have gotten to the interview stage, which means you have a leadership potential that is strong. The first key to success is that you can lead yourself and that you can be practical enough, right? Intensive enough, and that you do not just read, but you rapidly read, right? The reason I'm saying there is reading and then there's rapid reading is because of the kind of school I found myself in by choice, right? My school was my own choice, right? It was a choice I made, right? And then when I came here, I realized that my school was fire and brimstone, right? And I'm being very, very honest and direct about that. It's not the kind of school you come to when you want to work, right? It's not the kind of school you come to when you want to do like part-time jobs at Tesco and stuff. It's not. It's not the kind of school you come to when you want to when you want to do some of those things you said on the previous slide, right? It's the kind of school you come to, for example, when you want to meet with lecturers, professionals, research projects that would allow you to focus on making strong impact in public health. London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So it's so diverse and so robust that we went to classes every single day, Monday to Friday, right? 8:30 to 5:30, and then we have lectures that run from 5:30 to 7:30 to 8:30. Those are called Global Health Lecture Series, where they bring researchers who are doing work across different countries, and then they present their projects. Of course, that is voluntary because by 5:30, you are super exhausted. Your brain is about to explode, right? These are things you need to consider. So if you want to intensify your knowledge and give yourself to like training for the 1 year, then that's where you should be, right? You should be using the opportunity that the academics bring to you because, for example, somebody said on the screen here, I look forward to gaining both pedagogical, professional skills to teach in a top-tier institution and provide environmental solutions to high-profile clients. Whatever your goal is, please have that in mind when you are reviewing and you're responding to your Chevening officer what school you have decided to go through. Now, think through the school, think through the courses you will take, think through the project you'll be doing, think through how that affects your previous career and how that's going to affect your future career. You have to be thorough in your thinking, and that thinking process must be complete. That's the first thing I want to say with this. So I'm going to pause for a moment, right? I'm going to pause for a moment, and then I'm going to say, now that you are expecting your Chevening Award to come in, right? This is the best time for you to start to think through what you wrote in your short-term plan, right? It's always best that once you've been chosen, you have a 1-year plan, all right? So I'm now going to make my short presentation, and I'm going to now focus on knowledge gain and career prospect. Knowledge gain and career prospect, right? And knowledge gain and career prospect. Your conditional offer will not be revoked if you don't think through this part, right? You will just tell them the school that you have chosen. You just tell them the school that you have chosen, and then they will send you a CAS. Your school will send you a CAS, right? And then you apply for your visa. You are applying for your visa by yourself, right? Chevening is not applying for visa for you, but they would send you your final award letter once you have told them the school that you have chosen, right? Your CAS is confirmation of acceptance to study, or confirmation of acceptance for studies, or confirmation of acceptance of studies, whatever it means. So CAS, so you take your CAS, you take your final award letter, and then you go for your TB test, right? You go for your TB test, you get your TB result, right? And then you make your application. So for visa application, you do not need to pay for the visa application. You don't pay for the visa application, right? Chevening scholars don't pay for for visa applications to the UK, right? This is how it works. Once you are filling the application, it will ask you, right, with the link sent to you by your officer, it will ask you, which of the scholarships do you have? Is it the Marshall Scholarship? Is it the Commonwealth Scholarship? Is it the Chevening Scholarship? Immediately you select the scholarship you have, the need to make payments will disappear. You will not pay the IHS surcharge or blah, blah, blah. You will not make that kind of payment. So that payment will be completely wiped out. The test is mandatory for countries like Nigeria, right? You can check your country requirements. You can check your country requirements, right? If maybe your country is one of the countries that are exempted from doing it. So it's on the website, the gov.uk website, a list of countries that need to, what's it called? That need to pay for visa that need to do their TB test or pay for visa, blah, 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 right? But like I said, Chevening scholars do not pay for visas, all right? Please take note of that. So you don't have to pay for visa. So I'm going to stop this presentation on my screen, right? And then we are going to go straight to career prospects and knowledge gain, what you're going to get from your master's in 1 year, right? So let me just get some verbal feedback from our participants, if you can all hear me, right?
Yep.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sarah. Okay, fantastic. All right. A slide has disappeared on me. Okay. A slide is coming up now. All right. First, we don't want you to be blind, and we don't want you to think that you have time, right? Because you don't, right? So approximately, if you are 30 years old, that's the amount of minutes that you have lived, right? You have lived for 15 million minutes approximately 15 million minutes, right? So you see that whole thing that you want to do in 1 year, you have to be very crisp about it. You have to be very crisp about it, which means you have to be very, clear as to what it is, why it is, right? And why you're doing it, because you are going to suddenly feel the whole pressure, right? The pressure is going to come from having to do a lot in 1 year. And so your friends will tell you, for instance, myself and Oganetro were on some groups, right? On similar groups. So let me just put like a funny thing out there. So imagine you're like, in 1 year, I want to save all the pounds I can save, right? I want to save all the pounds that I can save. I want to work all the money I can work. And then once I finish this master's, please, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Yes.
So I want to save all the pounds I can save. I want to finish this master's with a distinction, right? I want to do all of that. But then you think that that's going to happen because you just said that's what you want to do, but it's not going to happen like that, right? Now, I am not saying this with such a serious face to tell you that you would not have a life. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we must be as practical as possible. You see this whole accommodation thing, right? By the time you are getting your Chevening offer, right, it might already be too late to get school accommodation. That is if you are in a university that has very limited accommodations, because accommodation applications open quite early within, let's say, March, April, around this time, right? Some of you might see that accommodations open early. And some of you might not know that there are accommodations that you can apply for and even get accommodation scholarships. There are actually accommodation scholarships, right? In places like Good Enough College, if you're going to live in London, right? Now, it's something you have to have applied for like months before. You might already have missed that process, all right? So chances are you might either be left with the option of renting a place outside of school, right? Or using the school accommodation that's available by the time your offer comes in, right? But take your accommodation search seriously. Taking it seriously means that if it's possible for you to live within your school premises, right, in a city like, let's say, a city outside of London, right, you need to have this at the back of your mind. If you are living in London, accommodation is expensive, right? If you're living in London, accommodation is expensive, right? So you'll be paying, for example, this is how practical it gets. Exactly. Thank you, Sarah, for putting that up. Yes, sure, the accommodation scholarships. So you'll be paying between £700 to £1,200 for a decent accommodation that is maybe like a single room in a shared flat, right? If you are living in London, right? And so London scholars get paid 1,600 and 1,600 or something, 1,550, something like that. So London scholars get paid £1,500, right? And so by the time you pay that accommodation, and that accommodation that you got is, say, 40 minutes to 1 hour away from your school, right? It means you're going to pay an additional transport of £5 to £12 per day, right? And if you're going to pay additional transport of £5 to £12 per day, you are going to have to commute maybe like 3 days a week for schools where you go to classes 3 times a week, or commute 5 times a week for schools like mine where you commute 5 times a week, right? And that adds up to your cost and expenses. So which brings me to the part where your planning, right, should not just be about how you will spend your time in school. Your planning should also be about your budget, right? Your financial budget for transport, your financial budget for rent, your financial budget for savings, your budget for travel. Whatever you want to do, you must have a budget for it. If there are exams you want to take while you are studying, you must have a budget for that, right? And then that now means that your income is just enough for you to survive, all right? Your income is just enough for you to survive. But if you're a scholar living outside of London, right? You can get accommodation for as cheap and as low as 400 to 500 pounds, depending on where it is, right? Let's say a place like Leeds or a place like Bedford. So if you, yes, even in London, you cannot save unless you have time to do extra job, or unless you have a remote job that you can do on the weekends, you will not be able to save, right? The plan is not for you to save. The plan is actually, Chevening has the plan for you to not worry about finances while you are studying. That's the goal. That's the goal. So at this point, getting rich is not your goal. But you can get rich by the grace of God. That one is very possible. So you can leave that out of it, right? Now, then that's for accommodation. So take your accommodation search very seriously, right? That's after all of the application for the visa and stuff. And then once you get to the UK, it's your entire responsibility on how you will manage your time. Nobody's going to tell you what you're going to do. But the next thing that will happen to you is going to be the shock that comes between your attention and learning digitally, right? So if you're looking for accommodation in London, there is nothing like good price. For example, if you're going to live in a place like Camden, you would need to pay 1,200 and 1,500 per month. There are places where you will pay in Camden for 400 pounds per week, 500 pounds per week, 300 pounds per week. And then this accommodation is going to come with a contract, right? You can have like 6 months contract, which means in that 6 months, you can't move out of the place, or 1 year contract, which means you can't move out of the place. If you are looking for houses with landlords, right, the best thing you can do for yourself is contact your university department, because they have a section, right? They have a section for student support in terms of accommodation. So they have a list of housing services that you can contact and all of that. They can even give you a reference letter, because most of these landlords would ask for a reference letter or a guarantor who has at least 37,000, as if they had 37,000 in extra money, you will actually be applying for that, their accommodation, which you will not be applying for. And that's anyway shades on one side. Point is, you need to get to know the area you'll be living in. The area you'll be living in is important. So if you're going to live in a place like Brighton, right, which is just by the seaside, right, accommodations there are also relatively cheap, right, compared to living in London, right? Transport there is also relatively cheap compared to living in London, right? So you can get bus tickets, you can for a week, you can get a bus pass for a week, right? You can get bus pass for a month, depends on you. You can get a train pass for those of us in London, can get a train pass, right? Or you can apply for student discounts. Actually, the discount is not discount at all. That's the truth. Anyway, point is, all the stipends you are going to receive, you are going to have to spend in the UK, literally. You're going to have to spend in the UK. It's like you're spending it on transport, you're spending it on food, you're sure going to spend it on something, right? But it's also possible to save, like I said. That's the reality of that part. Now, which then brings me to knowledge gain and career readiness. Now, when you have thought about the courses you'll be taking, when you have thought about the program you'll be doing, right? It's also important that you consider your health, commuting time, and all of those things. Your school, once you get to London or once you get to your school, they would actually get you registered with the NHS. They will send you a link, you do the registration by yourself, you register with a GP, right? And when you call a GP like this, that you're having a headache, because you cannot just go and buy drugs from a pharmacy unless you brought drugs from your country, right? You cannot just go and buy drugs from a pharmacy, right? So you would need to call your GP, and if you are sounding, hello, I want to see the doctor for maybe an eye test or a headache test, you are going to join a queue, you are going to wait for them to send you an actual appointment. But then if you let them know it's an emergency and you call the number, then you would get attention, right? The point is, there are support services all available to you, and you must read every document to the letter. That's the actual fact. If your school sends you a program structure, don't think they are joking. Don't think they are joking with the program structure. They told you that these are the 6 courses that you are taking. These are the credit loads of each of the courses. It's not a joke, right? If they say that you're going to spend, like my school, for example, will tell you how many hours you're going to spend on a program, a particular module, they will tell you that this course, right, the assessment is going to take you 90 hours. Don't think they are playing with you when they say 90 hours. You don't need to get the IHS health statement that's required for visa application, right? Once you are a Chevening Scholar, that IHS surcharge is exempted from you. You don't pay that, right? Once you fill that in the application, you will see the form there. That is taken out of the way, right? Back to the other thoughts. I think I would come back to those questions in the chat box so that I do not miss my train of thought. Now, what was I saying? Somebody should remind me what I was saying.
You were talking about the number of hours to complete a particular module.
Exactly. So your school will say 90 hours to complete an assessment, right? If you see that as part of your document, the fact is, take everything they say to you seriously, right? It's not a joke. When they say it's 90 hours, plan accordingly. When will you rest? When will you start working on the application? When will you start working on the assessment? All right, because it is not a joke. Because I know 3 people who sent letters and then they said, I am hereby forfeiting this course because I have burnt out. I've finally gotten to my limits and I cannot continue. Right? Literally speaking, you can burn out. Burnout is real, right? So take note of that. When you read all of the things provided to you, like I said, the student support of each school is important. For example, schools have something called hardship fund. Please listen to what I'm about to say. Schools have something called hardship funds or emergency funds. What that means is they have some money set aside to support students that are going through maybe certain emergencies or certain hardships. They also have something called extenuating circumstances, like emergency circumstances for assessment. Let's say maybe when you were doing your assessment, your fiancé broke up with you and you are now in a very terrible space. Are you listening? Right? You can then send a mail to your school and say, due to an extenuating circumstance, I just had a heartbreak and my mental health is terribly affected. I cannot submit this assessment on Friday. Please, I will request that you give me 5 extra days to complete the assessment. I'm not joking. You think I'm joking? I'm serious, right? They will give you those extra days, but you have to have proof. You know, whatever you are saying must be backed up by proof. Very important. All right. Now, hardship funds and accommodation support is available in schools. Okay. Now, this hardship fund, for instance, you can apply for it and say, okay, for my case, I applied for the hardship fund for my school because when I got to London, I lost my bag that had my passport and my visa, my BROP, that had my rent money because I was going to pay my rent that day, right? I lost it, right? I had to start using my personal money because I needed to do and get into the house as soon as possible in London, right? It cost me 5,000 extra pounds, all right, to sort out all of that period within a 6 weeks period, right? Now, but my school was very supportive. My school was very supportive, right? And I'm trying to tell you, all the support you need is available in your school's department. So the most important entity that you will need to relate with will be your school, right? The most important entity you will need to relate to will be your school. Once Chevening gives you the award and they send you your file and then you've come to London, the next time they are going to interact with you is going to be at a welcome event. Once you get out of that welcome event, the next time they are going to interact with you will be maybe at a conference or at your farewell event. So their own is we will send you your stipend, but your life and your academics is entirely up to you. You don't think, oh no, come and meet the alumni. Then nobody's saying come and meet the alumni anywhere. Nobody's going to say, oh, come on. It's not happening like that. So knowledge gain, right? Think through the course, think through the modules, allot time for everything, and then start to think about what is the career for you. Does career mean employment, visa-sponsored employment? Does career mean entrepreneurship? Does career mean maybe another PhD? But the way I'm feeling, I don't feel PhD. I'm not in a PhD mode the way I'm feeling, right? You might be feeling that you're in a PhD mode. So that will be very good for you. Amazing, right? Now, so career means a lot of things for a lot of people. So that should decide and inform your choices, right? For example, you cannot say, oh, you are in public health. Public health is very broad. There are several parts of it, right? They will not be in your business. Your business is your business, right? But definitely you have a program officer who takes care of 100 other students. So your best chance of correspondence is emailing, right? You send emails to your program officer that, okay, maybe you lost your MasterCard. So when you get to the UK, right, you will have to open a bank account, right? And opening that bank account, before you open it, you would be given something called a cash card. When you get to your pre-departure briefing in your country before you come to the UK, they will give you a MasterCard that has money in it. It will have your first stipend in it, right? Your first 1 month stipend will be prorated in it. It will be done such that it is related to your course date. Then you have an app for monitoring the money on that card. That's the card you're going to be using, maybe to withdraw cash or to like tap, right? So stipend and arrival allowance will be in that cash card. So let's say, for instance, you misplace that card, right? Don't worry, I'll talk about the employment. Let me talk about this cash card. Now, let's say you misplace that card as you are going on the road. In my case, I misplaced the card, right? I misplaced all my cards, all my stuff, because I was coming back from a field trip. We traveled as a school cohort, right? And then we did school election, etc. So I misplaced all of that card. So it's my responsibility to block that card on the app on my phone, because the card is touch, just tap as you go. So somebody can just pick up that card, walk to a supermarket and just tap something, you know? They'll just tap something and then a huge amount of money will just be like, I see the soul of the card has left, you know? It can happen like that, literally. So you can block that card. The current stipend is 1,003 for every other place that's not London. And the current stipend is 1,006 for London, right? So that is it. So your TB money would not be given to you once your TB test money would not be refunded immediately you just got here. It will be refunded like 3 months after, like in January, February, etc. That's when you're going to get the 75 pounds that you use for doing your TB test, right? So you need to think about that as well. So I'm saying that because of what's said in the chat box, right? So you need to open an account, right? So you should be thinking about 2 banks, Revolut, Monzo. I very much love Monzo because I think it's the best digital bank here, actually, in terms of user friendliness and how easy it is to open once you have your BRP, right? The MasterCard you'll be given will be given to you by the Chevening officers, right? It has an app you download on Play Store or Apple Store, and then you can see the money in it. You can see how you're using it, right? So all of those things will be in the MasterCard. Yes, the stipend for London Cheveners is 1,006. The stipend for other places is 1,003. So now I was saying, in terms of careers, you would need to first also take note that your school has a career section. And that career means a lot of things for a lot of people. If career for you might mean you want to get a visa-sponsored job, right, in the UK, outside of the UK, or maybe back in your home country or whatever, right, then that is what you should plan towards. If career for you means that you want to start up your own business or you want to do a PhD, that's what you should plan towards, right? But do not ignore the fact that you have like a career support service in your school, right, which will actually help you, orient you once you get here in terms of digital literacy. Once you are in class, for example, you might now need to start taking notes, not with a pen, right? Or a paper. You can be reading and writing on a paper. Maybe you come from a society where all your previous learning was done on pen and paper. It's going to be a huge transition for you, all right, to start learning completely on a computer. So I find it very easy to have all your notes in one place on the digital platform, right? And you will now need to start thinking as you are typing. Thinking and typing is a big deal as well. Thinking and typing it out at the same time is a big deal. So all the digital skills you will need, you will be oriented in your school on your welcome week. They will tell you if they have like OneNote that you can use for free, or you can use Microsoft Word, or you can use Google Docs to take your notes, right? So digital literacy is very important, right? The banks I mentioned was Monzo and Revolut, right? But you also need to think about having like a bank with a physical structure, a bank like HSBC, Halifax, which other bank? Lloyd's Bank. Okay, all these are good banks. You open all of this, but you actually need proof of address to open a bank account. And the proof of address you would need, you can get from your school. All right, you can get the proof of address you would need that shows that you're actually a student in the UK for 1 year, and you can get from your school. Standard Chartered Bank. If you find that in the area that you live, then you can open Standard Chartered Bank, right? So you should actually think about the one in the area that you actually live, right? All right. Now, competencies, like I said, are now going to be the most important part. This first one, critical thinking, is a big deal, right? It's actually what you would need, all right, when you're doing your assessment, when you're doing the referencing that you're referencing. People like Oren Chove and all of that can tell you that it's a big deal how you reference your documents. It's a big deal how you, if you are used to maybe like the chatting type of emailing and all that, you will now realize that your most effective way to network with people here is actually by emails, not by meeting people one-on-one, right? Not by meeting people one-on-one. So please take note of the fact that your emails should now start becoming more professional. And your email should not just be like, oh, I wanted to connect with you and see if you have any opportunities. People frown out. If your first email to me is to ask me about opportunities, I'm wondering if you're actually genuinely interested in networking with me in the first place, right? But if your first email with me is to tell me about your interests, and then let me know what you are also interested in, right? And then maybe any of my work that you've interacted with, I would then find you interesting to engage with, right? And then I can say, okay, let's have a coffee, or let's have a chat virtually. So these are things you should keep in mind. So think about these skills. These are the skills that are most important to people when you're applying to a job here, right? Now, how have you demonstrated these skills, right? You should have these things written up somewhere, because it's going to be important in your cover letters. Your cover letter is not the normal cover letter that you would just ring up and say. For example, if I could share my screen, I would have showed you some of the things that I have written in a while, right? So that you will see how it works. But the point is, for example, I can say in my last role as the senior behavioral centered researcher for UNICEF, right, in so-and-so project, right, I demonstrated collaboration by doing A, B, C, and D, right? Now, that's when I start to make my applications. So how I write my emails, how I write out these things is just going to be more of an academic writing style. So it is now time for you to start thinking about your digital literacy skills, right? Your self-leadership skill, how you can communicate clearly and academically, and how you can put things together really, really fast, right? Because you do not have time. Now, for some schools, you might already know your project that you want to work on because of the department that you are in. Or maybe you don't yet know the project you want to do for your master's. As far as December, you should start thinking about your project. You start thinking about what the outcomes should be. You start thinking about how that is relevant to your your master's, your PhD afterwards, or your next job, right? So your project can be related to your next job. These are things you should bear in mind. Now, in terms of explaining or expressing yourself in your personal statement, for instance, one of the things that the masters will do to you is that they will redefine who you are, right? They will define who you are in terms of your personality, the things you value, the things you're actually interested in, and then they will show you literally the skills you don't have and then the strengths you can build, right? This thing is important. You will find a lot of your Chevening scholars doing a lot of things, right? You find a lot of them doing volunteering, and then you find a lot of them doing work that seem very interesting to you, right? But it is for you to know which opportunities are on the path that you are working on, which opportunities are related to you, right? Which relationships should you focus on building, right? At the end of the day, you want to focus on the strengths that you are building, the skills that you are building, and the values you are gaining from your masters, right? And how that is affecting your personality. These are the things that you should have in mind. Okay, before you came here, you could write 2,000-word essay easily in 2 days, and it will be great. Now that you have done your masters, how has that improved, right? You would need to have all of this in mind as you go along, right, and do your masters. Now, it's important that you actually understand your personality so that you will know how to relate to other people. This brings me to the part where I want to talk about learning disabilities, right? I'm the student rep for my class. I'm the program rep for my department, right? Which means that I get to talk with the professors and stuff in my departments, and then we get to talk about the feedback that each student are bringing to the table in terms of how they are struggling with the courses they are going through. I have realized that learning disabilities does not have color. It affects both the white and both the black people, right? Learning disabilities also affect how you put out the work that you do. So to this, I say that each individual is unique. And in the course of the masters, you are going to see that there are things you struggle with. You can sit down on your laptop and have a blank Word page, Microsoft Word page open in front of you. And then they will say, in the next hour, type out or respond to this essay. And then you realize that your brain is stuck. You realize that you are reading several journals and you cannot recall. You realize that you cannot really handle the pressure of maybe 6 modules at the same time. Or thinking about the assessment is just paralyzing you. You just keep talking about the fact that you have a lot of work to do, but you can't really do it. You realize that you are reading and words are jumping out of the page for you. It's a big deal. So there are learning disabilities or learning difficulties, right, that people have that they do not know. So if you realize that you are struggling or you feel laid back, you are not the type of person that is very planned, you feel like a swing by kind of person, you don't have a calendar for anything, right? It's going to show up in the 1 year. And if you don't deal with it, you're going to struggle, right? You're going to struggle with doing your assessment. You're going to struggle with delivering your coursework. You're going to struggle with. So which is why I recommend take your personality tests seriously. What kind of personality do you have? Maybe you have like a mental stressing issue, a mentally exhausting problem or challenge that you just experienced. It can be emotional and it's taking a toll on you. Seek mental help, right? Seek mental help, right? It's important that you seek mental help. Know as a person what your 5 strong suit is right now. What do you struggle with the most? What do you find very easy to do? Whether you are a qualitative person or you are a quantitative person, right? Whether you are very organized or you are not so organized, where exactly do you stand, right? How do you recharge as an individual? It's important. You need to know how you recharge. I do not recharge by being in a group. I function very well in a group, but I'm the kind of person who recharge with alone time. My alone times, I don't joke with them, because if I don't recharge alone, I would crash, right? Now, I'm saying this because you're going to get assessments, and then when you see your first set of results, you will now realize that you need to maybe up your game, restructure your time, or do better in all of those things, right? Now, have all of these things in mind as you prepare for your jobs, right? And then in terms of jobs and sponsorships and all that, you can then use opportunities once you have done your major coursework and they're out of the way, right? And you already have your resume up to date. So the recommendation is to always have a master CV in Word that you can always go into and edit, right? And then to have something ready that you can always send in a PDF version, right? That is general. So if, for instance, you want to apply here in the UK for a waitress role and you want to work in Tesco, how much is TB test? You can check like the health centers in Nigeria. I think they would have a more recent amount. When I did mine, I think I paid, was it 75K I paid? I think I paid 75,000 or 85K. I can't remember now. Something like that. So, but it was all within the range of £75 or less. But now the money might have gone up. Now, please bear in mind, like I said, that learning difficulties and challenges are real and they will impact how you deliver your masters. Bear in mind that would affect how you apply for your job.
In school, if you want to work as a waitress.
You said what?
You were saying something with regards to working as a waitress at Tesco. Before you delve, can you just finish up what you were saying there?
Okay, yeah. So if you're going to work as a waitress in Tesco, for instance, and you're putting in your CV, right? In the UK here, your CV or those waitress roles come with companies. The companies that they usually come with are companies called Evolve, right? Involve, Quant, I can't remember the other one now. So there are companies like that. So you need to first apply to those companies and edit your CV to be such that you have either served at some point, right? Manage events at some point, right? Your experience that will be relevant is not your experience practicing law or practicing banking, blah, 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 right? So you will need to rewrite your experiences to reflect the skills that a waitress would need to survive as a waitress, right? Because that is what they're going to review. And once you get it, usually they will train you, right? They will train you if you are selected, they will train you, and then they can start giving you shifts. So the shifts can be in the days that you don't have work, right? The shift can be £11 per hour, £10 per hour, and then you can pick 2 shifts, maybe 4-hour shift, 3-hour shift, depends on you and the time that you have, right? Sarah raised her hand. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, I wanted to jump in, Martins, on the job, the payments for the jobs,
Yeah.
and add that minimum wage at the moment is at £11.89 per hour, and you can earn from there upwards, just depending on how many hours you work in a week, ideally 20 hours a week. So you calculate that minimum wage by 80 to find out what would be 80 means is the total number of hours you will work in a month, and then you multiply that by the minimum wage to find out what is the minimum amount of money you're likely to earn from any job that you take up while you're working in the UK, and then you can work upwards from there. I have a friend, Martins, who actually gets paid £30 an hour for a very specialized job. But what they did is that when they were in their country, they registered with professional accreditation bodies in the UK so that they could do their specialized job. So you can earn from minimum wage upwards. Back to you, Martin.
Thank you. So now this registration with professional or specialized bodies, right, is a big deal, right? If, like I said, you want to study and then balance your study with working, if that's your goal, right, then you should work towards it. Maybe in your 1 year, you want to say you want to write the PMP exam, for instance, or you want to join the Canada residency or permanent relocation PRO entry or pool, right? You might need to write some exams to get in there, right? But what is most important is that maximizing the Chevening Scholarship, we cannot talk about everything in one day. So it is important that you define what success would mean for you in that 1 year, right? that in this 1 year, how will I know personally that I have succeeded, that I made the most of my time, right? What would be the metric for my success? That is what you should have, right? So for me, for instance, success is making adjustments and contributing to maybe every organization or every project that I've had, right? So since I, on the other hand, for instance, unlike Sarah and a few other people, right, I am not doing any role aside from my studies, right? But then I have a lot of other roles that I'm taking on that are not UK related, right? For instance, I manage a couple of projects out of the UK that's not UK related for countries like Congo and stuff, and they are very much public health intent, right? Now, that's something I was doing before I came. And that's something I have had to find a way to balance up with. And then even at a certain point, I had to stop to do because my work was getting really intense and my academics were getting really, really intense as well, right? So that's my own definition of success, right? But I then do know that, okay, if I'm going to use my master's effectively, then I should be looking out for ways to do other things. So for instance, I'm doing something else entirely different, right? That has to do with zero dose in a country like Ethiopia, right? And that's a project that's very much I'm interested in and it aligns with my career. In short, is the next step I'm taking when I'm done with my master's, right? So your personal definition of success is important. If in the 1 year you want to become a data analyst, you want to learn data, then pay attention to all of that. I'm going to stop here now so that we can take questions. But in summary, your school will have all the support that you need, right? The time will not be enough. Your definition of success will be very much important, right? And you will need to maximize opportunities. Be very clear on what you want. Know the people that have these things that you want. Meet these people, send them emails, connect with them, right? What I wished I had known before I came is that mistakes are inevitable. You are going to make mistakes in this 1 year, even after listening to this session. You're going to make mistakes, right? So just settle that in your mind that even though you will make mistakes, but you need to move fast beyond the mistakes and find your bearing fast and balance fast, right? So I will just give a few minutes that I have left to organize Chove, then I'll bring Sarah up to take us in the Q&A session. Chove, over to you. Your mic is muted.
Okay, I've done that now. All right. Good day, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. So first of all, Martins, it's always exciting to hear from you. One of the reasons why I always like joining your session is because I get to learn from you as well. So I just felt you should know that it's always an opportunity for me to learn from you. So I want to first of all emphasize on something Martin said at the end, which is despite what you've heard, you're still going to make mistake. It's natural. And that's because it's just natural for you to make mistakes. But then again, you must be very, very fast and very quick in actually, responding. One of the biggest mistake I made was with my accommodation. So it's a big deal. You should aim to, make sure that your accommodation is around 50% of your allowance if you're looking to relieve that pressure of work and having to save a lot of money. However, it depends, it's personal. Some persons choose to prioritize comfort, over, saving money. So I realized my accommodation was too expensive and was not worth the money. So very quickly, I think around November, I quickly changed my accommodation. So despite all the advice I actually got, so it's natural. But I think one thing we've been able to do, Martins and Sarah, I don't think I got to learn about most of these things they've actually said before now. So please take them quite seriously. This is the first time I'm hearing about accommodation scholarship. Never heard about it before. Yeah. So, but I just have a few things to talk about. And first, if you really want to maximize your 1 year or more in the UK, I think you need to take security very, very seriously. I don't think they've mentioned that. Now, the UK is very secured compared to other countries, really. But the point is, when the issue of theft happens to you, most times you don't know where to start from because you don't see it coming. And so many scholars, they've actually got their phones. Today I was speaking to a scholar and the phone was actually stolen, I think some days ago. So you have to make sure that you protect your belongings while you're here very seriously, because if you misplace your BROP or your mobile phone, you have to go through a lot of documentation process for you to get some of these things back. So Martins can actually, talk about that from experience. In the UK, they don't joke with documentation. You fill, a lot of forms, papers, and the rest. So the next one is you have to be open to career change while you are here. That's another thing again for you to get the most out of your 1 year. So for someone like Martins and Sarah, I think they're already, very precise in terms of what they want to do, and they're actually sure about it. Why, for some of us, we are not so sure basically what we want to do. And opening your mind to more career opportunities or career options will at times enable you to get the best of opportunities that may be available to you. So speaking from experience, I came here looking at basically ESG and consulting. But over time, I've come to realize that I'm very passionate about sports, including football. And now I'm looking to, merge my passion for climate and also sports, and that's the focus of my dissertation. And that's something I've been struggling with. And another point again I want to add or emphasize, and I think Martins has mentioned it, please, the Chevening Scholarship is different from your master's program. And having this in mind, you have to make sure that you're very, very intentional about the school that you choose, because you have different, standard of schools here in the UK. You have the likes of Imperial College, the one that Martins is going to. These are really, really top schools in the UK. So you have to be very intentional about your school. The school you actually choose could actually contribute to you maximizing your stay here while you're in the UK in terms of the networking opportunities that you have, the kind of skills and knowledge that you will gain, and the best that you can get from your program. So please be very, very intentional about your school and your program, not just the scholarship. They are completely different. They are one and the same, but I would advise that you treat them differently. So please be very intentional about your school. And then your health is very important. So you can take your drugs from here, majorly vitamins. During the winter, please try to keep yourself warm. So your health is very important, because if you fall sick while in the UK, it's crazy. I have a groin injury, and before I'll be able to see a doctor for that, probably I would have even, gotten better. It might probably be in 3 weeks' time before I can see a doctor.
Oh yeah, Chove. I think
Yes,
the guy, the scholar who came here and then died as well.
yes.
Yeah. You can talk about it.
So we had a scholar who also came and died. That was, I think, earlier this year.
Yeah.
Earlier this year. So please, your health is very important. Not just your physical health, but also your mental health is very, very important. So you want to prioritize more than antibiotics, your vitamins during the winter. Please keep yourself warm. That's something you need to prepare your mind to adjust. I'm not used to putting on so many clothes. So when you come here, you have to get used to putting on, so many clothes to keep yourself warm. So your health is very important. And then I think a lot of you are concerned about your stipend. So really, I think it's enough, but it depends on, I think I answered a question in the chat box. It depends on your standard of, living, how you want to live, and your lifestyle, basically. For me, it has been enough. If I choose not to work, I can still, save up some money before I go back home. So it's enough. Just make sure your accommodation is around between 60 to between 50 and 60% of your stipend. With that, you're okay. Don't worry, the food here is cheap. So if you are coming from, you can come with your local spices, your local food, as many as you can carry, you can come with them. And I don't think you have issues with food. The major thing is accommodation. So please, I would advise that you try to secure your accommodation as soon as possible. If you can get your accommodation before coming to the UK, please try to do so, and be on the lookout for scammers while you're doing that from, before you get to the UK. I've made mention of stealing and also scam. So that's something you need to take note of. I think I'll just end with balancing your expectations and your goals. Now you're going to see scholars with different expectations, different ambitions, what they want to achieve during 1 year. And the time is so short, and you have a lot of expectations, and you have a lot to do. Martin's talked about how you could go on a group and someone is talking about how they want to save £12,000 or £13,000. I'm imagining how Martin's will be feeling when he sees something like that, knowing that he has to go to classes from Monday to Friday, and then he has just Saturday and Sunday to himself. So how do you deal with those kind of messages when you see them? Because really you have to work, or if your accommodation has been settled, for you to be able to save that amount of money. So you have to be very, very, your will or your mind has to be strong in terms of what you've told yourself you want to achieve. If not, if your mind is not strong like Martin's, you will just start missing your classes, and then you'll be taking up shifts. And before you know, it's going to affect your grades while you're in school. So you have to tell yourself realistically, what do you want for yourself, and what can your body take? You have to. So I think that personality test that Martin's talked about is very, very, very important. So know yourself and know what your body can take, and just be realistic about it. So I think there are some scholars that might not be working. I'm not aware of anyone in our community, but I know within my University of Sussex community, there are so many scholars that are not working, really, and I think they are doing just fine. So you want to be able to balance your expectations, try to manage your time, and try as much as possible to be realistic about it. I think I've actually talked about everything now. So I'll just allow Sarah to handle the Q&A. Thank you.
Let's just ask God for all and actually thank you very much for those amazing points that you just brought out. So we would respond to questions now. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you so much. So I had written quite a couple of them down. The advantage is that quite a number of them have already been answered. So the ones that are remaining are really few. So I think first I'd want us to agree on how much time we want to take beyond the 2 minutes that is remaining for this call, so that we can answer until there. And then we will provide the answers to the question that we may not get to, an opportunity for like next steps in terms of what we'll do to answer those remaining questions. So yes, we will share this recording. We will upload it, and I will tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes. But allow us to, can we go with 15 minutes tops to just answer some of the questions that may still be remaining?
Please, let's put our comments in the chat box if you want us to do 10 minutes extra, 15 minutes extra, 5 minutes extra, so that we can know how much time we have left, because we're supposed to end this call now.
Yes, so that we can see how much time we have left. So 15 is fine. Someone else is saying 20. So just keep the comments coming so that we see 15 is good. All right, okay. I think just from the people that are sharing, 15 works. A few people have said, yeah, most is 15. Someone else is okay with 20. Okay, we'll go with 15. And that is great. So thank you for all of the questions that you have shared. I'll just read out and then ask you to answer, where some of them might be very, direct. So Joshua, please give us a few minutes to answer some of the questions, and then we can get to you, so that in case we answer it, you can be able to lower your hand. So we'll do 15 minutes tops. Martin's, just quick fire round questions. Where do people register for their NI number?
Okay, so there's the gov.uk website where you can register for your NI. You can only register for your NI when you have your BROP. You will only get your BROP when you have gotten your CAS, and then you have applied for your visa. So your BRP will be given to your school. And then when you get to London or you get to your city of your school location, they will give you a BRP. Once you get that, you can then go on the website and apply for your national insurance number.
All
So
right.
there's a website for that. So we would link the website for that as part of the email we'll be sending to you.
Okay, great. Okay, are there other scholarship opportunities that people can apply for?
Okay, yes, there are other scholarship opportunities that people can apply for. There's currently the McBain scholarships that's open for 2024, 2025 to Canada. If you want to school in Canada, that's a fully funded scholarship that covers tuition, living expenses of living stipend of $2,000 per month, right? If you're going to live in Canada, Canadian dollars actually. So if you're going to live in Canada. So it's there. You can Google McBain scholarship, right, and get more information about that. They usually award between, I think, 15 to 35 scholars every year. And then you also have the Swedish scholarship. There's a Swedish professional scholarship, which I very much love. I love that particular one. I think I have a couple of mentees that got that one this year, right? They're currently processing their visas and then they'll be traveling in August to start their session as well. That's also fully funded. It's for any course of your choice and is in Sweden. It's a Schengen country, and with a Swedish visa, you can go to any of the Schengen countries when you are there. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Martins. For the scholarships, I'll also add that we'll share in the information pack that we will send out some other scholarship opportunities, some that are still open, like the ones Martin has mentioned, and others that you can consider applying for in case you receive a rejection email from the Chevening Scholarship, so that you have a plan B for some of the other opportunities you could consider. In terms of jobs, I'll answer the question of whether you should get jobs in your field of study or any other jobs. I'd say ideal is in your field of study because it aligns with your career development and your career path. Realistically, on the ground is the opportunity that you secure. So apply for jobs that have transferable skills to your ideal field of study, because what happens, like for example, with my experience is that my first job was as an international student ambassador, and my second job is as an accommodation support officer. So it's not a waitressing job, but it's not so I earn a lot more than the bare minimum wage for my second job. But for my international student ambassador job, I earn the minimum wage. So apply for work that aligns or has skills that are easily transferable to your field of study, but not necessarily a must to your field of study. Though as you're beginning, because you have a year, this year is a year where you can apply, you can begin with the jobs you get. And then the experience in the UK allows you to then apply for your ideal field of study jobs because it gives you the right path, or you can volunteer in that direction. Go ahead, Martins.
Yeah, also in terms of when you say apply for jobs, I think we need to know here jobs you do to earn money, right? And jobs that you want to do in terms of your career.
Yes.
So these are also two distinct things, right?
Yes, yes. So they're different. If you're applying for jobs for income, for money, you apply for jobs that are easiest for you to get into because of your experience, either in your home country or transferable experience from hobbies or things that you have done in your home country or in your volunteer experience in the UK. But also you can apply for jobs that are not necessarily in your field of study. They're not an income, you're not earning an income, but you're earning skill set or you're earning access, network to certain people from that job. So depending on the career goals you have, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
My second job is as an accommodation support officer. My first job is as an international student ambassador. All right, the question of accommodation you already answered. In terms of stipend, maybe Martin, you can give a brief breakdown of the realistics of how much you spend on your food, your accommodation, and your transport, so that someone who's trying to like have a mind map of this budgeting has a bit of a picture of By the time you're done with the month, you have zero money, or maybe you have like 10 pounds or 20 pounds, because I think we have a perspective that we'll be saving so much money, but that is not very realistic. So Martins, maybe you can go ahead and answer that.
Breakdown, right? Organizer said your rent should not be more than 50% of your stipend. For people who pay tithes, right, you also want to put that in mind. For people who have to send money back home, you also have to put that into consideration, right? If that's your only source of income, right? Because considering the fact that you're a full-time student and you're getting, let's say, 1,300 pounds, right? If that's what you're going to get for this coming session, if you're going to get 1,300 pounds, your rent should be, if your rent can be between 400 to 650 pounds per month. If your rent is 400 to 650 pounds per month, depending on where you live, right? And then your transport can be between 100 to 200 pounds, depending on the city in which you live, right? For example, I spend 250 to 300 pounds per month on my transport alone, right? So that's because of the distance of from my house to the school, right? So if that's it, and then for feeding, you can then budget to buy bulk food stuff, right? I think my cooking skills became reactivated when I got here. But that does not mean I don't eat out. I eat out a lot, right? But my budget and yours cannot be the same. So for food, you can budget between 100 and 150. That's if you have like provisions in the fridge and you have like meats in the fridge and stuff and all of that you can always, then you can have your money for your savings. Maybe you want to save like say 300 pounds per month, or you want to save 200 pounds per month or 400 pounds, and then have like extra money that you're saving towards, like you want to travel, you want to go to France, you want to go to Scotland, etc. So yeah, you have to have a budget for these things and plan ahead. Don't say, oh, I want to travel next month and then use all of your stipend to go, because you pay your rent at the beginning of every month. So once you pay your rent at the beginning of every month, right, it means you're left with money to live throughout that month. So you want to think in that regards, right? So I think I'll stop there, right?
Thank you for giving the tips on how to manage your money and just a picture of where the money will how you're likely to spend it. I think that has been very well answered. So in terms of balancing jobs and school, as I mentioned, I have a schedule and I really follow that schedule. So I have time blocked out for work, and usually I will put it on my calendar the same way I put time blocked out for classes, time blocked out for assignments, and when I should submit them. So that is how I balance my time in terms of classwork and the two jobs. So if I'm taking, everything is on my calendar. So if I'm taking a shift next week, I know it's going to be from this time to this time, and I know I have an assignment that is due on this date, so I can't take a shift. Like if I have an assignment that's due on Monday, I'm not going to work on Saturday and Sunday. I'm only going to work on Friday or Thursday, because I need enough time to like go through, finish, and then submit my assignment. So that's how I balance my two jobs. And my schoolwork, also my other job is a zero contract one, which means it's not every week that I have work. So I have work sometimes I don't, but the consistent one like supplements my income. Yes, Martins, I can see your hand is raised.
Yes. This whole working in the UK, I think we need to put it in a place. You are limited to 20 hours of work, right?
Yeah.
You can't do a full-time job while you are studying. No employer would employ you. All right, because you would have something called your NI, right? And right to work in the UK. Your right to work in the UK stipulates, if they check your right to work in the UK, it will show that you are, this student or this person is only allowed to work for 20 hours during non-term times, right? Or doing so and so jobs, and not allowed to do so and so jobs. So if you apply for any of those jobs outside of that restriction, forget it, you will not get it. So forget it. So forget any job that's 37.5 hours, 40 hours, which is a full-time job. You are not going to get it. Your closest bet is a summer internship. Right? So your closest bet is non-career related jobs, summer internships, right? Or other remote roles that you are targeting to start once you submit your dissertation and you complete your master's. Right? So these are the three close bets that you have. So be very realistic in your thinking. Unless you are somebody that has like skills like data analysis skills, and then you can do gigs on Upwork and other stuff, and then get paid with PayPal and stuff, and you're making your money on weekends and stuff. which means you will not bother blah, blah, blah on you get. So have that in mind. I wanted to put this out there, right? The restriction is a big deal. You cannot work full-time as a student. You are limited to 20 hours, and that 20 hours can only be for jobs that have that limit. All right, Sarah, please, next question.
Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing you want to chime in. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I was going to speak about internship. So, there's an organization that actually has internship opportunities. I think it's called Black Interns. So you can actually check
10,000 Black interns.
10,000 Black Interns. The challenge is that most times the opportunities that are available are usually 40 hours, like full-time, requires full-time. But you could still give it a try and put in a very good application. I'm not aware of anybody from our set that actually got it, but I know that there are international students that usually get internship from through 10,000 Black Interns. So you can, this is just beginning of early June. So you can just quickly Google 10,000, just search 10,000 Black Interns. I'll try to get the link and put it in the chat box. And probably Martins is doing that. So you can check them out. So internship is a very good one. And you have to start looking out for your internship from a very early stage. Probably immediately you actually get into the UK. You could do that through your university career service. You could also use LinkedIn as well to get internship opportunities, 6 weeks, 3 months. And some of them you could even start after the end of your program. And then you do that before you return to your country. So I just thought I should quickly chip that in.
Thank you, Oge, for plugging in Black Excellence. It's amazing. I actually know someone who is who received the Black Excellence opportunity. They're not a Chevening Scholar, but yes, people do get it. Lastly, I want to invite Joshua, because your hand is still raised. I want to presume that we haven't answered your question, but just before you unmute, I wanted to say that pro tip is when you're talking to people here, usually ask for their LinkedIn accounts and not their phone numbers. Then also for Youlead International, please follow them on there. You can see their social media pages here. Lastly is also my social media YouTube channel is Sarah Muindi. I've done I actually have a playlist for Chevening. So feel free to also check it out and get a lot of some of the answers to the questions that you may be having that you haven't answered here today. Joshua, you are welcome to unmute and ask your question very quickly and briefly, and then we'll respond and end there.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Martins. Thank you, Ugenecho. I mean, this has been quite insightful. So my question goes thus, the course that I actually applied to is actually at University of East London, and it has a 6 weeks internship placement during the course of the program. So I want to ask, during this particular point in time, that 6 week internship placement, if I'm to go there, and let's assume that it's a paid internship, will I have to resign from perhaps I was already working at somewhere else that is not really related to that particular internship or the organization that I want to carry out that internship? Will I need to resign from the previous work to go over for that particular internship? That's the question I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, I will say 2 things before I answer your question. First, in terms of packaging your experiences in the UK, starting a blog, getting visible on LinkedIn, try to make a difference online. There are ambassador roles that several organizations have, right? That you can volunteer with and ask. For example, you can be a global health ambassador, an education ambassador, right? That you can volunteer with. You can even volunteer with this one champion ambassadorship and all of that in different cities in the UK, right? That you can be a part of while you're doing your master's. Your university will also have like centers and projects that you can volunteer with and learn from and gain experiences relating to your field that will inform your job applications when your master's is done. So usually most of the placements that come with courses, right? If the placements are within the field, they give stipends. If there are internships that have affiliation with your university, they might give stipends. And this stipend may range from £500 to £2,000. It depends. And if it requires you to work for that 6 weeks full time, then you will need to maybe discharge your other commitments because you might not be able to do both. But if you can then do both, I think it's now a thing of personal preference, right? So you want to have that at the back of your mind, Joshua. Chowe and Sarah.
I think I would add just briefly and very quickly, because our time is up, is just talk to the person, the current role you have as you're getting the partnership, request to have a 6-week break so that you can do the internship and then come back to work. Just ask. You lose nothing by asking. I want to say thank you to each of you that has joined us for this session. We will do an post-session brief that will have, it's an email that will have all of the resources that we have mentioned and all of the links that we have mentioned. Some, like the one that Oge mentioned, are not yet open. It's your job to keep checking until it opens, and once it opens, then you can submit your application. Then we'll also share this recording on YouTube. We will upload it so that you can be able to have access to it, and we'll share that recording on in the email as well as we are sending it to you. So if you have received some beneficial input, please go back to Mentimeter and tell us one word that describes what the session was like for you. I'm seeing someone is joining as we are ending, but we will have that for the next maybe 1 minute. Martins, as you're giving your last remark, Oge will give his last remark, and then we'll end. One word, put it in Mentimeter of what has been helpful. Just one word describing it. Martins, go ahead.
Thank you all so much for joining in today. Thank you, Sarah, for being here and being very helpful. Thank you, Chove. It's always great and very supporting to find you join these calls. I'm very, very much looking forward to our meetup this weekend. Okay, that's for Chove. Now, for the rest of you who are expecting your emails, I'm trusting God on your behalf that you will get selected for this scholarship, right? And for the rest of you who did not maybe apply or get to the interview stage, we also have a support group, right? Where we do like full-blown personal mentorship for people applying for scholarships, right? And it's Global Wins, right? You can join the group if you're not part of the WhatsApp group already, right? If you want to know how to join the group, you can maybe just send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat box, right? So that you can follow up. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to send myself an email. Sarah would also put her email in the chat box as well, right? And we will be glad and very much happy to respond to you. I believe that your 1 year as a scholar is going to be one of the most adventurous that most of you might experience. But please remember, it's entirely up to you. Nobody is ever like you, and you are very much unique. Thank you all so much. Chove, over to you.
I don't have much to say. So I'm just wishing you, all of you expecting, you're looking forward to your email. Wishing you all the best. And yeah, so hopefully from this weekend, I think some persons are already receiving emails. I think a scholar told me that. So, but at most this week, by Friday or latest Monday, you should receive the email. So I'm wishing you all the best. Cheers.
Thank you
Sarah,
very
over
much.
to you.
Thank you. Just thank you for those who have put in a one word to describe their experience today in this webinar. I wanted to point out that I have done a video on my YouTube channel answering the question of what next if you don't get selected for Chevening. I'm also going to, I've typed my email on the chat so that if you have questions, you can ask them there. And I have put my YouTube channel as well. Please, I invite you to join, subscribe to the channel. I have done a playlist for Chevening. So questions around the TB process, how do you apply, where all of those questions, actually you'll find it quite insightful because it's been focused particularly on Chevening itself. And my last remark for you is being and having the opportunity to be a Chevening scholar is a life-changing opportunity. It's not it's not the end all though. If you don't get selected for Chevening, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. You are exemplary as a leader. And so take that sense of self-belief with you. And for you who get selected for Chevening, I am wishing you the very best as you embark on a very transformative journey. And lastly is to say the anxiety is normal. The refreshing of the emails is very normal. And the worry about whether you will see unfortunately or you will see congratulations, it's very normal. Some quick pro tips to help you address that level of anxiety is talk to people. Just tell them the way you're feeling and the way you're doing. And you'll find a sense of community and belonging because other people are feeling the exact same way that you're feeling. And it's okay to be anxious. And also, it's for a very short time, and then you'll have an answer about the outcome of your application. Thank you so much for giving the time to be here. We will upload this recording to my YouTube channel as well, so that you will be able to have access to it. And as we are doing a follow-up email, it will include a link to the WhatsApp group community that Martins runs, so that you can receive one-to-one support as well. So thank you to each of you. You're welcome to give us some claps, to give us some thumbs ups, and you're also very free to leave the call. We'll maybe, Martins, you will determine if we are giving a few minutes before we end or we are just